recording.
Here we go.
It's live now.
There we go.
All right. Well,
So
take two.
FYI, I got all that live.
Oh my goodness. Well, take two. Hey, beautiful people. Welcome to the Voices of Impact Podcast Summit. My name is Noreen Four, your host for the day. I am the founder, the founder and host of the Save Our Sisters not-for-profit group and this wonderful Save Our Sisters Unplugged podcast. This podcast is all about resilience and strength, where I help women share their stories of survival to success through the power of storytelling. Now, I created the podcast because I believe that women have an invincible spirit that resides inside them. And I want to be able to basically just help women walk in their power by providing this safe environment where we can just share our struggles, our achievements, and our successes in a safe and judgment-free environment. As we know, we don't like people talking about our stuff. Once we in the room, we want things to stay in the room. And so the point of this is to let women know they're not alone in their life struggles and that their sisters understand and are here to help them through it all. Now, while my primary focus is on amplifying women's voices, I will occasionally feature men's stories to provide valuable perspective on how both genders can work together for mutual empowerment, which is why I've invited Clive here to be on this podcast, because I feel like his podcast represents an area that, it's not too talked about. We're just uncovering, peeling the Band-Aid off of that one. You're just peeling the onion back on that. But he will give you some details on that a little bit later. But I do feel like men's voices are important, and we also always need a man's perspective. So I wanted to celebrate this day, which is normally celebrated on September 30th, but due to scheduling conflicts, we're celebrating one day early. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce my amazing panelists. First up, we have Miss Coach Keisha Woods from the Women's Hustle, Thrills and Spills of Entrepreneurship, Melissa Webb from the Untoxify Your Relationship podcast, and Mr. Clive Vanterpool from Candid Conversations. Welcome, guys.
Hey, hey, hey.
Thank you. Thank you.
What
Hi.
Just bringing up the Ray. Hi. So, give us a little bit of back history on yourselves and tell us a little bit about your podcast and the story behind the name.
Well, I am Keisha Woods, aka Coach K Transforms. I am the founder of Upgraded Mindsets LLC, but my podcast is The Woman's Hustle, Thrills and Spills of Entrepreneurship. And I do have a second podcast called Empowering Real Talk. Both podcasts are basically talking about transformation, shifting, but of course, different subjects. So my primary focus right now is The Woman's Hustle, Thrills and Spills of Entrepreneurship, and it focuses on just that. As a woman entrepreneur, I wanted to create a space for women who are either interested in entrepreneurship, those are on the entrepreneur journey and stuck, or thriving ones that are scaling. This is pretty much talking about the thrills and spills. I named it that because we know if you are an entrepreneur like myself, entrepreneurship is a roller coaster ride like no other. So the reason why I came up with the name is because we always hear about the great things of entrepreneurship. We always hear about all of the magnificent six-figure months that people are making and, things like that. And of course, that is great. But because I'm real and raw, I have to also talk about the unfortunate side, the months where no one makes any money, the days where we want to just give up and go back to corporate America, and also bringing other experts in to talk about their thrills and spills as well, just to have a panelist of people to talk about
Thank you.
all of those things. So Empowering Real Talk is my baby that I've had for 3 years. And although I love Empowering Real Talk, and that is my groundbreaking podcast, The Woman's Hustle has just proved that it was a podcast that was necessary. I've received great feedback and insight on it. So just glad to be here to vibe out with the rest of you guys today. So thanks for having me.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I'm next.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Hi, my name is Melissa Webb. I am a licensed counselor in Missouri and Illinois. I am located in St. Louis, Missouri. 314 for show. Yes, Nelly, stand up. But my podcast, Untoxify Your Relationship, is all about getting that toxic mess out of you and your partnership. So I come from it from a biblical perspective. It all basically started when I was a therapist, still am a therapist, but when I was doing private practice, I worked with a lot of women and their relationship issues. And I was like, oh my God, is this like across the board? And so I wanted to definitely help a wide range of people outside of just St. Louis and Missouri and Illinois. And so I started a podcast to help others with their relationship issues and definitely come from it from a biblical perspective because if you're not aligned with your partner, you're not aligned with God, then why are we even doing this? So that
Period.
is what I do. And I'm almost at 50 episodes. We're going to take a little break after 50, which will be in like 2 more episodes. And then we're going to come back fresh in 2025, talking more about dating and actually being in a relationship and what that looks like. So, again, a lot of mental health standpoint and from a biblical standpoint, because both can live together in harmony. You don't need one or the other, it's both and. So, that's me.
As you said before, some people need Jesus and a therapist.
Absolutely. It's a t-shirt. Buy it.
Mr. Vanderpool.
I'm Clive. That's it. Um, I guess the short version. Clive Vanderpool, obviously. My baby is pretty much Candid Conversations. Me and Noreen kind of like jump started together, kind of came up with the name and stuff like that. But it's the foundation of it is pretty much around mental health with the minorities and also focus on everyone, but also being focused about men. So we do hear and see a lot of stuff in empowering women. But for my aspect, I don't see much when it comes to us because of how culture and society says that we have to be the solid everything, can't be soft, we can't do XYZ because you look at it as a weak individual.
Mhm.
So stuff that I've been through and realized that's not the case. You know, we as individuals, we're human too. We go through the day-to-day hustle like anyone else. We have some days we need to step back. We have some days we need to cry, have some days we need to just vent and not feel less than who we are based on how culture and society says label us as. So that's what the podcast is. That's what the main foundation is. But I've been kind of using that as a branch from that and using that as in our day to day for me as a content creator, for me as a father, for me as a individual in the streets, like, you know, friends and whatever. So I use that part of it as a branch out to understand mental health is connected to everything we do. So that's what the foundation of my podcast is about. And that's how we kind of create like, hey, kind of candy conversation because it's the real. There's no sugarcoating to anything.
Exactly. And I love it. And just like I was saying before, we want to lift the rug up on that because there's a lot of men out there that feel that they cannot express themselves, right? And we know that when you can't express yourself and you hold stuff in, just like a balloon, you hold it and hold it and hold it, and one day you just pop. And then that could blast off on your spouse, your children, your your boss, and none of those situations are going to turn out well for you, especially as a spouse. I think the spouse is a little scarier than the boss at times. So, getting into the theme of this summit, Voices of Impact. What does that mean to you, and how does that tie into what you discuss on your podcast?
So for me, and I'm gonna kind of always come from two aspects because although the woman's hustle is the primary focus, I will never forget about my initial baby, which is empowering real talk. So just speaking from empowering real talk, the mental health aspect is definitely in there. I wanted to have those real raw uncut conversations, and If those that know me, those that are listening, and those they may not know me, I'm a very vocal, outspoken, and sometimes loud person. But I've shifted that from a negative loud into a positive advocating loud. So empowering real talk is just that. When it comes to the woman's hustle, same thing. I want to be vocal about women and entrepreneurship because a lot of times we don't feel supported on our journeys. So I wanted to create that space and create an impact on that. And just being able to, on both podcasts, to hear someone tell me, hey, I listened to your episode. It really inspired me to do X, Y, and Z. And I really appreciate that. To me, that is always going to be an impact, whether it's a comment on one of the episodes, whether someone's inboxing me, emailing me, inquiring about being a guest on the show. All of those factors to me are part of advocating because there's others that want to play a part in doing that with me. So I love that I'm able to utilize my voice in that aspect.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
for
important. Go ahead.
my bad.
No.
Yeah, sorry. For me, it's being a voice for healthy relationships. I think a lot of people get their advice from no shade, no tea, from people on social media don't know what they're talking about. Um, and I think it's perpetuating a world of earthly wisdom rather than heavenly wisdom. And so when you have that, you do have unhealthy relationships, toxic relationships, and then also people using buzzwords wrong. It just really just grinds my gears. And I'm just like, no, I want to be the voice that can help reshape relationships because that is important not only for romantic relationships as far as family, your at your job, with your friends and loved ones, right? Like that relationships are we're going to have relationships, right? And so being able to have healthy ones is different than just having a relationship. So for me, I wanted to be the voice of how can we have healthy relationships? What does that look like? How do we get there? And how can we incorporate Christianity in that, so that way it's just not like I'm just pulling something from thin air. I'm actually coming from the book, and if I'm coming from the Bible, we know that is truth, and people need the truth and not the fake truth. And so for me, I am wanting to be that voice of, hey, let's have healthy relationships, and what does the Bible say about this? So for me, that's what Voices of Impact is.
Okay, that's great.
It's interesting. For me, it's like the main thing for me is using me as an example, using me as a individual that's has and still going through life. So if I can at least help one person from my mistakes and voice it out, I think that's one of the main things that I love what I do. Because a lot of stuff I put out now, especially on the short reel stuff, is a lot of stuff that comes to my mind, and I just post it. So even we do the podcast thing, I do take those short reels from the podcast and also my day to day stuff I create. So my goal has always been if I can at least help one person from my life aspect, from my life understanding and my life mistakes that I've has or had created or still creating, I think it's a good thing. Because I said one thing I've always come to know is like, even though I might have days where I don't want to do anything, I don't want to speak, I realize there's other people have it worse than me. So if my voice, if my content can at least help one person, I think I reach my goal, especially everything I post. So that's pretty much what my podcast is about. That's pretty much what my channels are about. That's pretty much everything I post and do is about is just take me as an example and say, hey,
I agree with that
you can
too.
achieve from that.
Using
Yeah.
yourself as an example is always.
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I'm sorry. I think I might have had some technical difficulty. Um, yeah, I agree with using yourself as an example, because a lot of people, they look for that credibility. And in my podcast, it is called Save Our Sisters. And the reason why it's called Save Our Sisters, it was strategic. Someone asked me, why wouldn't I change my name from Save Our Sisters to something else? And I said, well, I wouldn't change it from something else because The acronym for Save Our Sisters is SOS, and SOS means help. And what I aim to do is help people through their trauma. Now, I'm not a therapist. So if you have not really dealt with your deep seated trauma, I would always recommend that you do that. But people that have shared their story before and they just want to let people know that they're not alone, I like to deal with them. But the validity in it is when before I even get you on my podcast, I want to have a sis chat, not only to see how we vibe well, but to let you know, hey, you know what? I've been where you are. I know what you're going through because I've been through it. I've been through a lot, and I've told my stories in various episodes of the podcast. So I definitely understand how using yourself can be a big impact because, sometimes it's like people that give parenting advice. And we know that not all people that give parenting advice can parent. Sometimes they're not even parents, right? And then they have all these things to say, but they don't know what they're talking about because they don't know, how to manage children. They don't know how to raise a household. They don't know that your teenager and your adult child and your little toddler are going to have three different parents within the same person, right? So when you have your podcast and you're really just using your voice to make an impact on others, it does matter what you say. It does matter what your content is, and it does matter who your target audience is because you touch people, and I know some of us are already touching people in all across, all walks of life, all across the globe, right? Which is important because that's where the radio waves are, and we want to do that. So I really like how you guys are really using your voice to really impact everyone, because that's truly important. So when we're on our podcast and we're telling our thing, it's basically storytelling, right? People are coming on, they're telling their story, they're telling you how they've been. How has storytelling transformed the way you approach difficult topics in your podcast?
For me, it honestly, in the beginning, I started podcasting simply because it was something to do during the pandemic. I didn't think at that time that it was something that I was going to become so passionate about and really want to do for the long term. Um, Touching back a little bit on what you said as far as the transparency, I think it's critical. And that's one thing that I've made sure of bringing is that level of transparency. So, you gotta tell me that question again because I got straight off track. What you say? What was the question?
I said, how has storytelling transformed the way you
Right.
approach difficult topics in your podcast?
Um, well, honestly, I do want to touch on that sometimes therapeutic intervention is probably something that I recommend before. I do have a screening process because I do feel like that sometimes a storytelling can get dangerous in a sense. But for me, um, just the level of transparency that I have, it actually shows the others that it's okay to be that transparent, and I think that the storytelling, and honestly, I storytell sometimes, but I like to engage in conversation with both of us, right? So if I have a guest on the show, it's not that I'm interviewing them per se. We are discussing a particular type of topic. So within that, the storytelling side comes in from them sharing their personal experiences or their professional experiences, whatever that looks like for them. But I don't want them to feel like that I'm kind of quote putting them on the spot. So within that, the storytelling side comes into us engaging in, maybe sharing experiences, sharing transparent moments, speaking on the fact of, hey, we both went through this, so let's touch on this particular topic. So, I guess that's what I would label my storytelling within my podcast because I just really believe in being transparent in every episode that I record. And I believe that my listeners want transparency in every single episode. And I don't believe in having like a fixed setting. I want open and honest all day, every day. So that's kind of where I take it. The storytelling is really us both kind of sharing experiences and sharing insight on a specific topic. And if that includes a part of our story, a part of our history, whether it's trauma, pain, whatever that may be, then great, but I just want that level of transparency in the storytelling.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for me, I always open up with some type of story, whether it's my crazy story of dating and some of the dating goals that I have had, or even stories I've heard from other people. Of course, everything's anonymous, but I use that as an attention grabber, and then two, just to make normalize, like you're not the only one going through this, and other people have gone through this as well, and so kind of like normalizing some of the things that people go through. I also use, of course, Bible stories because I love talking about the children of Israel leaving Egypt and going to the wilderness, and just how they all just kind of jack that up. And then just taking different viewpoints, different stories in the Bible, and how, yes, this can also go with what you're talking about and what you're going through. And this is the lesson from that. And so I tell a lot of stories, whether it's personal or biblical, to help bring awareness to whatever topic I'm talking about. And then also, I love the transparency of stories, because, like I said, the transparency of me is I'm not perfect. Transparency of biblical stories is the people in the Bible certainly wasn't perfect, except for Jesus. But that's a whole nother story. But after that, but really, it's just the whole point of, yeah, we're not perfect, and this is what has happened to people, whether personally or even in the Bible, of how they made it through and how they were able to move forward in that relationship or topic.
Absolutely. And Josh says storytelling shows vulnerability, transparency, and can sometimes establish trust in a newly formed relationship or interaction, which is
Absolutely.
very, very true and very important.
It's good. I guess the main part for me too is being vulnerable is the key thing. And for a lot of people, that's not easy. So when I first started off with the first podcast episode, it was a little nerve wracking, a little bit. That's me actually showing myself to the world, right? So I realized the more and more I started doing it, the more and more comfortable I became. And being able to be comfortable within yourself, it shows, especially if you're doing it live like this. It's a difference. Over old school podcasts was just all faceless. You can't see the person's face. Sometimes you can tell by tones, but you really can't tell in most cases. So I didn't want to go that route. So when I say I'm going to go live or record or whatever you want to put it is just seeing my face, seeing other individuals with me. I think people receive that a little bit differently. So being able to be vulnerable is one thing. Being able to speak your truth is another thing. And being confident within that. So one thing with me is, like, I would tell you, any episode I do, even when I go live with different content, I always go back and listen and watch everything. And it's more of like reteaching myself. I notice I said this, maybe next time I can add that to a different topic. I noticed I said one thing and it wasn't clear, then I need to clarify that next time. So using yourself as a story, using yourself as a book, and some say it's a vessel. I don't want to go too far that way, but it's just you're becoming, quote unquote, someone's going to be looking at, right? So that's why but that's why I got into this, because it was more originally for me to vent. It was more of me to like speak myself, speak my truth, and it's going to capture somebody. As I said, we're not perfect. I know for a fact I still make mistakes, but I need to understand, okay, since I made the mistake, what do I need to readjust? What do I need to ensure that I don't fall back in that type of behavior, or whatever you want to categorize it as, So me being real for myself, to me, is one important, powerful tool. And then vocalizing that to everyone else, to see that it's like, okay, well, yeah, he is a human being. You know what? I actually dealt with that last week. You know what? He has a valid point. You know what? Let me look into this. So that's how I look at it. So, not saying like everything we speak out, we telling people this is what you exactly need to do every day. Take what makes sense to you, and then analyze it yourself and say, okay, would that work for me or not? So that's how I look at it. So it's like this type of podcast stuff to me is way more powerful than what people think it is. It actually helps a lot of people. As I said, my first one went as far as New Zealand. And that guy messaged
wow.
me. He's like, hey, you just don't know how much you helped me, Daddy. He was in the hospital. But when he messaged me that first time, I was like, you know what? Yeah, I need to stick with this. So it's like,
Oh, I love
it's
it.
crazy though. It's like, that's why I said people just like, sometimes you feel passionate about something. And for me, we procrastinate quite a bit because you just don't know where the way it's going to go. So like, might as well try it. If you realize, hey, this is not for me, hey, at least you tried it. So that's how I look at
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And I look at it exactly the same way too, because Keisha would be able to tell you, as much as I'm out here in these streets, I'm a very shy person. I don't like people to know my business. And I figured out why podcasting was my choice. It's because I could hide behind my microphone. And then Miss Keisha was like, well, you got to get live. People got to see who you are, and I'm like, what? People got to see me? And she's like, yeah. How else are they going to relate to what you're saying if they can't see you? And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to creep out here in these streets and see what happens. So I did like one LinkedIn Live, and it was supposed to be 30 minutes, but I was so nervous. I felt like I was in a therapist's office, and I ended up spending a whole hour, and I shared my entire story from start to finish. My hands was clammy, the hairs in the back of my head stood up. I wasn't even thinking about, oh God, people are going to listen to this and they're going to be like judging me. When I got done, I was like, oh God, people are going to really listen to this and they are going to take something from it. So I kind of like empowered myself, so to speak, because when you grow up in a household where you're supposed to keep the business in and you're putting all the business out, and not only are you putting the business out, you're putting it on live stream, which can be shared to multiple people for public opinion. It was a scary thing for me when I first came out. And so once I was out, I was like, you know what? I have to really keep doing this, because if the point of this is for me to get my voice out there and quote unquote save our sisters, then the sisters need to know who I am. They need to see my eyes, because I don't trust what people are saying. When people are talking to me and they got their sunglasses on, I'm like, I can trust nothing you say. Take them sunglasses off and I can look you right in your eyeballs. And I'm like, okay. And so I just took that same approach with the guidance of Miss Keisha here, because I think it's important for us to do that.
It
So
is.
when you
It's an
guys,
empowering. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
go ahead.
No, I just wanted to commend you because, I have been, supportive to you in every factor, and I just want to commend you because I have seen your growth, so much when it comes to that. And I just want to definitely let you know that I'm proud of you. I know we all are proud of you, but continue to do what you do.
Thank you. Thank you. And it's that encouraging. I was just telling my babes, I was like, I wasn't, because a lot of people don't know this, but I just lost my mom not too long ago, day after Mother's Day. And I'm completely wrecked. I'm completely wrecked. You don't see it. I don't look like what I feel like, but I am completely wrecked. It has thrown my whole world upside down. And I knew that this was coming up, and I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to skip it for the year. And unbeknownst to Miss Keisha, what was going on, we met up for lunch and, well, dinner, tacos. And she just said, International Podcast Day is coming up, and I was like, okay. since she said it, that means I'm supposed to do it. So sometimes your motivation comes from places you don't even ask for it, it just indirectly comes to you. So when you guys are having those moments where you're like, oh, I don't think anybody's listening, maybe I'm not reaching anyone, how do you really pull yourself back to say, you know what? Let me get back out here and get back on my grind?
For me personally, if I get to that stage, I know that it's the self-doubt kicking in and I need a reset. So I have so many tools that I use, coming from a mental health standpoint, that I have no problem with shutting down. I have no problem with saying, "Hey, I'm going to pause for a second. I need to realign, refocus," because the one thing that I know for sure is that these podcasts that I have are necessary. My tagline is, "The journey is necessary." So anything that I do, I believe that it is necessary in order for us to elevate and empower, encourage, and motivate each other. So if I'm having those moments, I'll take a step back. Hey, I'm gonna, set back for a week or two, realign and figure out what I'm doing. But I'm also gonna get analytical with it, because I'm gonna look and see. I'm not gonna allow that self-doubt to overtake me. I'm going to do the research. If this isn't working, what episodes played a part? A lot of times with podcasting, we just record, and I get it, but as someone that is trying to pivot in her podcasting journey, I do have to pay attention to those things, because this is something that I'm going to probably be doing for the rest of my life. So I want to make sure that I am strategically elevating myself and not just putting a mic in my face, because I want to make an impact, and whatever that looks like for me, whether it could be on international stages. Hey, manifestation, baby, I'm all for it. But just making sure that I am intentional in continuing to grow anything that I do, because I'm a full-time entrepreneur. There's no corporate job for me. There's no paycheck that I can fall back on. I have been a full-time entrepreneur for 4 years. So I have to think like an entrepreneur, whether it's through podcasting, whether it's through coaching, whether it's through hosting events. I have to always think like an entrepreneur. So if those moments come where I'm like, nobody's listening, then I have to really take a step back and figure out, what do I need to do to make sure that there are listeners and that I'm making that impact. Because again, with podcasting, that's what it's about for me. So I'm always going to analyze. I have an overactive brain, an overthinking brain. Whew, Lord, so much overthinking. But I have tools and strategies in place to help me with that, so I don't go off the deep end, and continue to keep myself focused, but also understanding that I can take time off, that everything does not always have to be perfectly aligned. I can say, I'm not with it today. I have canceled recordings because mentally I was not there. I am very unapologetic about that, and in my disclaimers, I will say that, please understand that I'm all about our mental health, making sure we are our most mentally healthy versions of ourselves. So, hey, if you don't need to, if you don't want to record today, I totally understand. Let's reschedule, because I will do the same thing. So, just being that person to understand that it's okay, because I'm still human.
I second everything you just said. Because I feel the same way. Like, sometimes I can get caught up in analytics, like no one's listening, but I also know like that's that self-doubt popping in. I think it was like 2 weeks ago, I had 0 listens like all week, and I was like, whoa, what did I do? And like I knew I didn't record. I was like, do I need to record every week? And I'm just like, yo, chill out, calm down. Like, you're almost at episode 50. Like, everybody, like, it's okay if you don't have a listener one week, right? And just being able to calm myself down, do my mental health things, which is one, sleep. 'Cause I probably am tired, and definitely need to de-stress. Unlike Miss Keisha, I have a full-time job, right? And so this is podcasting is like a second thing for me. And so I know for me, like sometimes that job be jobbing, and I'd be like, Jesus
Yeah,
Christ,
baby.
yeah, I love my checks. However, right, just gotta take a deep sigh sometimes. And I be
Woosah.
tired. I be woosah is right. I just be tired, and so I have to like literally collect myself to be able to be like, yo, am I gonna record today? No, we skipping this week. Okay, cool. And I'm okay with that, right? That not having to be perfect. Like at first I was like, I have to record every week. I have to do this. I have to do this, like very, and now I'm just like, listen, it'll get there. It will get there. And also strategizing for me. Like I have to strategize in order to be like, okay, this is, I also have a kid who's, I think he's asleep now. I don't know. But I also have a kid and having to strategize around my 3-year-old, so being able to do all that. I forgot the question, but I think heading home, just basically like just not getting caught up in analytics and just being like someone is listening. Whether matter of fact, it was the other maybe 2 weeks ago, I did a 5K and it was a couple of people I saw, Facebook friends, ain't seen them in a while. Like, hey girl, what's up? And everybody who I talked to was like, yo, your podcast is dope. I listen to it every week. Even though I don't see it per se, like they're like leaving reviews or whatever. It was an affirmation of like God telling me, I told you people are listening. You just have to keep doing what you're doing. I'm going to do what I do. You do what I do. And you do what you do. And we're going to make magic together. And so just that, I had 5 people that day at a 5K said, your podcast is dope. I listen to it every day. It's really helped me. And so I'm just like, okay, people are listening. I just had 1 week of 0 listens, right? But at the end of the day, it's so many things happening in the background that you don't know, that you just have to just keep going, especially if this is like your passion or your calling or whatever it is, you just have to keep going and just know that in the end, people are listening, whether it's just one person, you're reaching someone. And I think that's the whole purpose of podcasting. You don't have to have 1 million listeners like Joe Rogan and them. If you got 10 listeners, so guess what? You're changing lives in 10 people, right? And so I think that's the point of podcasting. As long as you're changing lives with one person, that's okay. Okay, I'm done talking.
Yeah. I like that.
All good points. For me, you guys kind of hit a few things on me, but there are days I don't want to go live. There's some days I don't even want to sit here. They had a few times where I didn't do no type of content for a whole almost 3 weeks, 2 weeks. But it's like it's the mental thing, because I said you're dealing with your personal stuff outside of this, so a lot of stuff do mess with you quite a bit. So being in the content realm, even if it's podcasts, even if it's the stuff I do too, it's still content. We're capturing and we're also pushing out. It's still content. A few things for me is I always approach this into not looking for making money. I try to ensure that that's not what I'm doing this for. For me, it's the outlet. Mostly for me, outlet. You need to shut everything out outside and just be able to just be me, right? So not being able to create content or whatever, sometimes it does mess with me too on the other side, right? But I notice as soon as I sit here and I say, you know what, let me just go live. Within 15, 20 minutes, that's even long. Within 5-10 minutes, you're like, okay, I forgot why I didn't want to go. I forgot why I didn't want to do this. But I've noticed though, the times where you really don't want to do nothing, it'd be the best content ever.
Yeah.
And for me, doing anything over an hour and a half is normally my norm. And the days I go over 2 to 3 hours, I realize those are the days that I didn't want to do nothing, because the time just flies by pretty fast. So
that's a long time.
And it's some of the best stuff, like really.
Gotta split that up in a part 1 and a part 2.
Yeah, like the other day I went live, and by the time I caught myself, I was live for 3 hours. And that's like, it's some of the best. I was able to at least take that bulk of it and then clip a whole bunch of stuff. So being able to do this for yourself, meaning to unwind and sometimes to vent out, it helps you. It's therapy within yourself, the way I look at it. So it's rough. As I said, it's sometimes you don't want to, And sometimes those are the times you really got to sit down and just, you know what, just click it, just hit record. And I feel sometimes there will be the best stuff. Like, don't don't create no script. Don't create any template for you. This way you need to follow every single time. Just being organic, real to me that's the best way to do it. That's the best way to approach it. And that's what I've always tried to do it that way. Let's say at the same time, we as human beings, we still have to deal with stuff. We still have to motivate ourselves to get there. But
Yeah.
it also helps having someone to motivate you too, you know?
Yeah. I agree.
Facts.
And Josh is making a good point again. Josh is on fire today.
He always on fire.
He
That's my
said, it's
boy.
been my experience that it takes courage and strength to allow yourself to be vulnerable enough to attempt to be example for others and to show them a different perspective or an alternative view. And you know, I truly understand all of that. Josh, I'm gonna need you to type some smaller books.
Yay,
I
lucky.
do appreciate the interactiveness, but yeah, it was definitely you know, for me with my podcast, I deal with a lot of traumatic experiences. Even though I'm not a therapist, I deal with SA, I deal with DA, you know, trafficking, you know, a lot of different things that are really deep seated and rooted and can really break your soul. And one of the things that I was on another podcast, I was actually on the Talk Shit with P podcast, Miss Paula. And
Hey,
shout out to Miss
Paula.
Paula for always sharing everything I got going on. So she's listening. Shout out to you, my girl. But she asked me this, and no one has ever asked me that before when I've been a guest on their podcast. She said, Noreen, you know, your podcast, it, you know, you deal with a lot of really deep seated, rooted, traumatic things. How do you prepare yourself mentally to really sit and listen to all of these things that people are telling you? And my answer was, you know, it just caught me off guard because I never really like prepare for it. Like in my little sis chat at the beginning of, you know, my pre-interview, I asked them what they want to talk about. I never really think about how I'm going to react to it. Right. And the one podcast episode that I really reacted to was the trafficking one, because that, I mean, the things that she was telling me in her podcast and all the things that happened to her and her experiences and her friends' experiences, the hair was standing up on the back of my neck. My hands got sweaty. Like I was so invested, like I was like glued to her mouth. And my
Mhm.
mouth was open at one point. I had to close it. So I wasn't really prepared for that. Like, and then I thought to myself, should I be preparing for that type of stuff? Because yeah, a lot of people want to really talk about what has happened to them, as Oprah Winfrey would say in her book, what has happened to you. How do you guys really prepare yourself for the deep-seated conversations where, I mean, and I know, Melissa, you're a therapist, so you probably just trained for that, right? But sometimes even still when you hear it, you have to still take some steps back. So how do you really mentally prepare to hear tough conversations?
Well, from my perspective, again, I made, depending on the conversation, because I do have a pre-chat. I have conversations with people. We do like a quick chat, podcast inquiry, because for one, I want to make sure that your conversation is a fit for the show. I have had experiences and have been on podcasts that really weren't relevant to my mission and my purpose. Because one thing about it is I love doing this. And although it's monetizing and things like that, if it becomes a job for me, then it's something that I have to evaluate. Right. So this is always a purpose for me. But I do have the policies in place. If I'm talking to someone that I know what the conversation is about, they want to share particular aspects of their story, then I get myself mentally prepared, whether it's through meditation. Hey, I'll tell the guest, hey, let's get on about 15, 20 minutes before, because I want to make sure that they're in a good headspace, because that's going to help me be in a good headspace. I don't want them to feel like that they're pressured. I ask them, hey, are you comfortable with these particular questions? If I ask these particular questions, are you okay with that? I prepare myself by preparing them, because that's going to allow me to understand how the flow of that conversation is going to go. But also, depending on what they're talking about, whether it's, being abused in any aspect, I'm going to get myself calm. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to pray. I'm going to make sure that things are going to go, effectively, and that no triggers are going to be warranted while we're streaming. Because I don't stream live, I do pre record, but I do it for those reasons, because I've had an episode, and I'll share that, where someone real life went ballistic on the podcast. And had I been live in that moment, I just don't know how that would have been taken. So, although I love the authenticity and the raw and uncut of it, they were completely belligerent. They were completely, talking about a specific type of people, talking about a specific religion, a specific race. And it got really crazy. And I just had to really disconnect that. So, that was a lesson for me to say, hey, pre-screenings are required, but also making sure that I talk with them beforehand to make sure that we are both in that space to be able to have a conversation effectively.
Yes.
This is a tough question because I don't know how to prepare. Like I said, like you said, I am a therapist, so I've heard and seen some things that probably no one probably should have ever heard or seen before, and worked with people through their trauma, particularly kids and even some adults, but a lot of crazy stuff I've heard from kids and their abuse. And so I'm just like, I kind of feel like a lot of times people can't throw a lot of things at me that's just like, oh my God, like every once in a while someone would catch me off guard. I'm like, oh wow. But it's more of a shock, and not like I'm not prepared, because the therapist had kick on, and the empathy and the unconditional positive regard, and the I'm so sorry that happened to you, all of that kind of kicks in. And then afterwards it's like whew, that was a lot. Okay, let's go ahead and pray. I always pray for the people who I work with. Pray and, de-stress, take a break, go to sleep, eat some food, drink some water, exercise, all the things that they help me. And so, yeah, I think on my untoxified your relationship, I haven't really had any heavy conversations except when I had, Leah on my show. Shout out to Leah Fornage who's listening. I had her on my show, and we talked about sexual assault, and she shared her story. And even with that, it wasn't heavy because we kind of went into this whole, biblical Christian, and how we just kind of like went around and say, yes, this happened, but at the end, we have this blessing from her story, right? A blessing that kind of happened with her. And so it wasn't as heavy. So, to anybody who's doing heavy episodes, definitely take care of yourself, um, and make sure that you create a safe space for people to be able to share their story, and also a safe space for yourself, because you are dealing with some heavy stuff. So, I am a trained professional, so it's a little different for me.
Yeah, and I actually listened to that episode with you and Leah. I didn't know what I was in for. I mean, having dealt with the both of you on the documentary and seeing how you guys interact, I was like, oh, I have to listen to this. It was amazing. It really was, because not only were you sharing something that was tough, it's the way you guys were just giggling, and the rapport between the two of you, it softened the blow. Let's just say that. And I think that's kind of important too, how you really take a tough conversation and really soften that out. What do you think, Clive?
No, I believe that we do it a lot, right? So you just don't know sometimes. Back to what Coach K was saying, like you don't go to live, you do the pre-record based on what you've experienced and stuff like this, just because you just don't know. It's just always that unknown situation. So I can understand from that view too. But for me, it's like the way I look at it now is like I've always had that uncomfortability of um speaking, right? I've always had that people gonna look at me weird. How is he pronouncing those words? Why is he that type? It got to a point where I had to step back for a while and kind of find myself, and I realized, you know what, it's just who I am. So me and Noreen, we had a couple episodes where it's like, this is who I am. This is how I speak. If you can't accept who I am, and because we had a couple
Yeah.
episodes, we got really in depth, but it's like it's not like I don't give
Really
to.
deep into our dialect.
Yeah, we don't get too, but it's like at the end of the day, it's like I'm not going to judge you for stuff that seems different from me. You know what I'm saying? That's who you are.
Mhm.
So the part that's crazy for me is like when people use this word weird, right? And weird, sometimes people use it as a negative. It actually is not. So
It means
my
unique to
weird,
me.
my weird is my normal. To you, it's not. And your weird to you is normal. To me, it's not. So it's like it's not really a negative. It's just you're not used to how quote unquote I carry myself, or how quote unquote how I speak and how I was brought up. So for you, it's different. Let's say some people say weird, some people say that's taboo or whatever you want to say. So it's like embrace your weirdness. That's the way I look at it. Like it's like if you look at me 3 years ago, I'm not who I am. I'm not the same person who I am now. For it's like for an example, I'm into fashion. I dress how I feel. So you'll never catch me wearing bright colors like this 3-4 years ago. Never. So it's like understanding and evolving on a regular basis is key. So we as content creators, we as podcasters, we as coaches, we as therapists, we are in our realms of what we love to do. And our goal is to always try to be there for at least one person, right? So we're not perfect. If we were, everybody would be doing it, you know? So
Come
that's
on.
why I like what we do. I like how we do stuff like this, regardless if it's for females, it doesn't matter. We're doing something for something that we love and cherish, right? So, and Noreen would tell you, I wasn't a talkative person. Was very, very, very shy. I don't talk like this. So getting into the type of stuff, it forced and evolved me to actually start speaking. So that's how I was able to get comfortable of being able to speak, even though I might pronounce a word different or I may put a word in a different context that shouldn't be there. I don't care. Long as you understand where I'm coming from, then it's fine. So dealing with things, especially on this type of realm, like, yeah, somebody might say something or might do something that catch you off guard. But how do you handle that is the thing. So I feel the more and more we practice this art, this craft, the more and more we're able to handle it more swiftly in a more efficient way to ensure that, hey, it doesn't impact you or them or the audience too much or in a negative realm. You know what I mean? So it's like whatever way you want to approach it, it's not a right or wrong way, if that makes sense. You're doing it for your platform the way you want to do it. And that's why I said don't allow anyone to say, hey, you need to do it this way.
Yep.
If you're gonna follow what they're gonna do, then you're not doing your own thing.
You not being authentic. Come on, Clyde.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
In this type of realm, yeah, we do watch and listen at other creators, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I do it because I still want to learn. I still want to evolve.
Yeah.
So when I see something, I say, oh yeah, you know what? I like how she did that. You know what? Let me write this down real quick. And then you take that information and critique it to you. Not copy. Yep. Critique it, make a little adjustment here and there. It's like, you know what, and make it your thing. So that's why I look at it. As I said, compare from where I was back in 22 when I started this content thing into now we're in 24. It's a huge difference. I used to sit there for 4 months straight before I even clicked to go live and watch hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. I was like, you know what? And then you just critique it to how you want until you find your comfortability. So that's how I look at it. So I know it's a lot, but
yeah, You know, it's so funny. You know, when I shared in the beginning that I was so nervous about going live, and I'm still in corporate America. I- The funny thing is, I have done so many presentations at work. I don't, maybe it's because it was work that I was comfortable. I was like, "Yep, this is who it is. This is just the job." Maybe it might have been because it was personal is why I had a problem going live. Now, Melissa, you're the therapist. Tell me if that's really a thing.
No, I think it is because I can actually attest to what Clive is saying. Like, I started last year in September and I was just like nervous and I wasn't even live. I was pre-recording. Like, I gotta say this word right. I gotta make sure I got this right. What's the Greek? What's the Hebrew? Like all this stuff that just don't matter, right? And just getting the information out was the main thing I wanted to do. And so I can actually say, like Noreen, like you say, you're in corporate America. I'm in nonprofit America, which I don't know which one is worse. But we're listen, they both got their things. Anyway, so even in nonprofit America, I see myself, I'm doing more presentations and I'm like, the confidence is through the roof. I'm like, yeah, and then we doing this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm over here making jokes and everything. I'm like, but I would have never been able to do that if I hadn't started podcasting a year ago. I know that podcasting has
Mm-hmm.
helped me to have that self-confidence and that drive and all that. Now I want to do presentations. I'm like, who want to do presentation? Me. Who want to do this? Me. Now it's like I want to do these things. I think it's all because I've learned how to do these things through podcasting and it's perfected my craft. I know I am more clear in my speech. I don't use and like and right, all those like filler words as much as I used to. I'm more cognizant of my speech. I'm more cognizant of a lot of different things. So you know what? I don't know if this. I know you asked me if that's a therapist, asked me if that's like a mental health thing. I'm not sure. I just know when you do something over and over and over and over again, you get better at it. And as you keep getting better, you want to do the things that you didn't want to do before because now you have the skills and ability to do it better than what you were doing it maybe a year or two ago. So maybe Noreen, maybe this is you being able to do these things in corporate America because you have been podcasting and you understand what public speaking looks like because all podcasting is public speaking just behind the mic.
Yep.
Straight like that. I love
Mhm.
it. I love it. And I think too, just
But the thing
being
is, I'm backwards
I
no,
am
but why do you
so.
feel that? Why you feel you backwards though?
because I'm super confident doing the presentations at work. I guess because it's work related. But when it came down to me doing the live presentations, maybe
It
it's because it was my personal stuff that I was talking about. Maybe that's why I was nervous about doing it.
That and work was work. You knew your check relied on doing them presentations. So it was kind of like a force. You know
That
what I'm
part.
saying? Like, let's just keep it real. Like it was a
That
force of
part.
like, I gotta be confident. I gotta do it. So why not be confident in doing it? Whereas on this side of things, when it comes to podcasting, it is not a force. It is something that you have purposed yourself to do. So obviously, because I love that Clive even said the word, and I wanted to mention this because he said the word twice, and I just love it. It made my heart warm. Is evolving, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, each one of us have evolved in some way, shape, or form when it comes to our podcasting journey. So you being able to evolve by coming from behind the microphone and going live. Yes, that was a moment of being uncomfortable, but that's just what life is about. We have to get uncomfortable in order to grow and pivot. So evolving into doing lives, evolving into discussing your personal, as you said, I pay attention to you. And even though I know you more on a personal note as well, you have a lot of things that you are bringing to the forefront when it comes to the personal life. But you had been trained growing up. Don't you talk about what go on outside of this. That's the mindset that you
Mm-hmm.
had for all these years. You are breaking that stigma, sis. So it's going to be uncomfortable as ever. It's going to be scary. I'm still on that journey. Although I'm very confident in what I speak about, what I talk about, who I coach, how I coach, and everything that I do, I'm never going to sit here and say, oh, I don't want to grow. because I have shifted my mindset into growth mode. I'm always wanting to learn. Clyde said it best: listening to other podcasts, listening to other people inspire, motivate. Hey, I'm all for that. That is all that's in my news feed. That's all that's on my YouTube
Mm-hmm.
channel. That's all that I listen to, whether it's, on whatever platform. So I shifted. 5 years ago, I was watching Ratchet TV all day, every day. So, just going to show the shifts that I've made in order to embrace myself overall and get uncomfortable to grow. So I just love the word. And I think that should be our word for the day is evolve.
Evolve. And I love what Leah said too. She said her first season of Hey Queen Thrive was full of mistakes, but it helped her become a better speaker and trainer. Now,
Facts.
here's the thing. Do you go back and revamp those? Because some people do. Once they, like, let's say you first starting out, you don't have the good microphone, you probably podcasting from your Anchor, the Anchor app with your phone. It's like some people said that they wanted to go back. Now that they got the good equipment, they want to go back and change it. I felt like, no, I wouldn't go back and change any of my episodes because I want you to see the growth. I want you to hear me using all the ums and stuff, but then by season 5, you're like, oh, she got it together. Sis knows what she's talking about. She even know how to work this equipment. Maybe not pushing live when you're supposed to push live, but
Me
So what do you
personally, I
guys think
did.
about? What do
Oh,
you
yeah,
guys
I'll,
think
I'll
about
piggyback.
that?
That's good. I did actually go back, and some episodes I did delete. And the reason why I deleted them, one, they sounded horrible. Like, I'm talking about sound
Mm,
was terrible. And even though I didn't delete all, like I didn't even delete them, I just drafted them. So they're still available if I ever want to republish. Revamping them, no, I just drafted them and removed them. But I think some of them weren't relevant to, again, some of the episodes I was doing, I was talking about like things that were going on in my city that was not relevant to where I am now. And I think that
mhm.
I just kind of deleted some of those, but because of the growth that I've exuded, but I talk about it in the newer episodes, But me personally, I have drafted some episodes, just like I said, because the sound was horrible. And as a podcaster, when it comes to the analytics side, if it sounds terrible, nobody's gonna listen to it anyway. They don't want to listen to all that
Yeah.
air and that all that background noise and everything. It's not, they're not going to listen. I don't care how good the title sounds, they're not going to listen. And because podcasting has evolved so much, we kind of know that now. Whereas during the pandemic, yep,
Hmm.
everybody was podcasting, so it was excused. But now there's so much technology that is able, you don't have to spend $100,000 on equipment to record a quality podcast. You can spend under $100 and have a great quality podcast. So for that reason, for me, there are some episodes that I have archived, but probably because of some of the topics were like completely irrelevant. It was just me talking just to be talking. So now the
Hmm.
podcasts have purpose. So I did kind of archive some for that reason.
Hmm. Yeah, and that makes sense.
I'm not gonna redo anything. I want you to see everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I think in this world we're so used to seeing everybody on the mountaintop, but we're not used to seeing people in the valley. And I think the valley is where all the growth, all the everything happens. And we all use some mountaintop selfies. We're like, okay, we made it. Hey, look at me now. I got 1 million followers. When we had one, that's I think more people need to highlight the valley, versus
Hmm.
the mountaintop. And so I want people to know where I came from. I want people to see everything. I want you to see my imperfections. I want you to see how I stuttered over my words. Sometimes now don't be feeling like editing. And if it's an episode where I'm like, it's all good enough, I will put it out there. Those are some of my highest rated episodes, the ones where I did not edit. And so it's like, I want you to hear that I am human, that I am imperfect, and you're going to get this knowledge and this biblical advice, and we're going to keep it moving. And so, no, I'm not redoing nothing. One, I don't have the time because who I don't. And two, That's what you're going to get. You're going to get me unapologetically authentic. And it's going to be authentic and it's going to be jacked up, but it's going to be great at the same time. So that's me. I ain't redoing nothing to answer your question. Nope.
3 of those things can be true. And even
Hey,
Leah
I got a
said she
4-year
stopped editing
podcast.
because she got rid of perfection.
And I'm not mad because I don't edit a lot either. You know, before Clive chime in, I don't edit a lot either. Like I don't, because I would go back and try to delete every single word. I would try to do this and that. I don't do that anymore. I do want to make sure the visual looks good, because the audio, I got that down pat because I do testing before I even record. But the visual, I got to make sure that the visual looks good. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just me personally. But it's also a part of my branding. Again, my podcasting is something that I am pursuing more full time. So because that's the journey that I'm on, I do have to make sure that I look good doing it. So, you know, now I'm perfect, because don't get me wrong, y'all, I still cuss. Let's be real. I still cuss. I still talk smack. I'm still a little petty. I am very raw and authentic when it comes to my journey. Okay. But I just got to be, you know, clear on the screen doing so.
What do you think about all this, Clive?
I'm just listening. I'm just messing. No, but for real, the main thing visual is for me, which you guys can tell. I'm big about that. I'm big about being clear, the vocals, and yeah, it took a minute to get to this. Like you gotta, as I said, I go back and listen and look at some of my stuff. I was like, okay, I need to tweak this, I need to tweak that. If I hear any sort of sound of a background noise, okay, I need to fix my mic setup. Like try to get everything clear enough so when I do decide to go live or record something, I'm good. But to go back and revamp, well, let me rephrase that statement. The only thing I revamped was we call it overlays. So I officially branded my channel maybe 2 years ago. So having a name, of course, I have on the platform, of course, you can see it's Tola Man. So I went over and beyond on that one to ensure that brand specifically shows that if so I go live, it pops. So it captures the audience like, oh, let me see what it's about. But you have those visual aids, but so when they do come into your channel, you got to make sure your vocals are good, make sure your camera is good. But as I said, I started off small, and I said you don't need expensive stuff. People think when it comes to like my channel and no one else, you got to jump straight to that. I didn't do that. I just pretty much used an old computer. I found a $30 mic off of Facebook Marketplace, and then I think the most I spent was like $107, and I started it that way. But I was able to go learn and perfect my craft by using the same old equipment and tweak it to a way where it looks like a professional equipment. So revamping to me, it's a choice. You don't really have to. I look at it, as I said, my favorite word is evolving. So people can see where you came from and where you at now. And it's like you're using that as, hey, this is my journey where I was, and this is where I am now, and this is where I'm going to continue moving forward. So you don't have to, as I said, you are using ourselves like as an examples, right? A good friend of mine's back in Georgia, I met them when I was living there, and she was as I said, I met the husband, and then we're good friends, and she was looking to get into podcasting on the real estate side. And same thing I told her, you don't have to get expensive stuff. You can pretty much use your phone. These phones now are literally expensive cameras. All you gotta do is get a $5 stand, put your phone on, push it a certain way, get a ring light, exactly, and just get
There you go, Miss Keisha.
like a lamp I had over here. I think I spent $15 for that, and it can adjust the brightness, and that's it. And so a lot of the stuff right now, you don't have to spend that much money. You know what I'm saying? Eventually, when you get into full blown professional production, then that's different. You know, but
Yeah.
there's so much stuff you can get right now where it's under $30 versus $1,500 versus $6,000. That's the same exact work, right? But it's like meeting someone that's like, for us, that's been down that journey. We understand that We can tell you, hey, yeah, you can invest in that. You don't need that right now. You know, so revamping, as said, or redoing any past episodes, maybe you can do that. But I would say make a part two. Make a part two of it versus redoing the whole thing. You know,
Yeah,
hey,
that makes
from the
sense.
previous episode, we talked about Joe Smo down the street. Let's continue. How is he? Is he still down the street, or are you up the street? Is he up the street now? That's the way I would say do it that way. You know. But as
Yeah,
I said, the only thing I say is rebranding your channel, make it more eye catching. Maybe that, yes, which I've done. And I actually did pay the professional to do mine. So, and to me, it was worth it.
Yeah.
So, episodes, leave them. You can just add to it
yeah.
and just keep growing. I think
Yeah,
it's the
and you
best way
just
to
touched
do
on
it.
a sweet spot for me, Clive, because you talked about paying somebody to do it. You know, you get all these when you get these LinkedIn requests, oh, so and so wants to follow you. The minute you follow them back or you accept the request, it
Here they
pops
come.
into your inbox. Your email is on fire. Oh, I can get you 45 downloads for $45. It's like, how do you weed out the good people that can really help you revamp your channel or help you with your download? Like, is that even a thing? People out there that can get you more downloads? Because I'm like, why would you want that? Wouldn't you want people to authentically just
Yeah.
love it instead of you paying someone to like
Yeah.
spring it along for you?
As someone that has made some investments when it comes to the growth of podcasting and channeling, it's about your optimizations. So it's about what you're talking about. If you have, we talked about it a little bit earlier in the broadcast about like your target audience. You still have to kind of do that research and figure out who you want to be. I see a lot of people that want to do podcasts, but when it's time to talk about who you're trying to reach, oh, I just want to reach everybody. If that's your purpose, fine. But as in from a coaching perspective, you're setting yourself up for failure. Everybody has a target audience. Everyone
Hmm.
has someone that they are trying to make an impact on. So you have to start off with knowing who your audience is. Once you've established that, then you work on things to fine tune that so it does reach that audience. YouTube is a powerful, powerful tool. And I talk about this often. YouTube is not social media. YouTube is a search engine, just like Google. It is a search engine. People type in what they want to look for, what they want to see. So you have to, in order for you to reach them, you have to make sure your optimization is in alignment. So when they type in what they're looking for, your stuff comes up the same as Google. So because I understand that, I did make the investments because I
Yeah.
don't have the time to do it. I know how, I don't have the time. You know what I'm saying? On top of podcasting, I have two full-time businesses that I operate. I just didn't have the time. So I had to make the investments and it has paid off for me. I made the investments to help with my SEO, to professionalize the page, make it look, more brand worthy and stuff like that. So it really just depends on where you're wanting to take things. If it's not something that you're wanting to pivot in for the long term, it could be something that you just continue to do. But if it's something that someone is wanting to elevate on whatever level, then but finding the right ones, it is going to require research on your part because they hop in them inboxes 24/7, baby. And
Mm,
honestly,
Mhm.
one of them could be,
ciao.
but you have to do the research. If they are you, and I'll tell you this on LinkedIn, because I'm not on there as often. I'm going to go back eventually. But LinkedIn, for example, if you get someone that hops in your inbox and you go to their LinkedIn and they only have 22 followers, they have never made a post, and that's really on any social media platform. Where's your work? You know what I'm saying? I need to see your work. Show me your
Right.
work. And even if you want to respond to the inbox, hey, show me your work. Send me a portfolio. It's no different than when people are asking me, hey, we're interested in having a coach for a summit or a speaking engagement or this, that, the other. Hey, media kit. Shout out to my girl Leah, because baby, she made me perfect that with our class earlier this year. So a media kit. They should have one. They should have a portfolio that's talking about what they do and be able to show you the work that that they've done. So just a tidbit for you and a tip for anyone that is, looking to have that done. You do still have to do some vetting and some research when it comes to hiring anyone for any aspect. So
I
I
haven't.
totally agree with that.
Oh, go ahead. I haven't
No, you go ahead.
done. I'm sorry. Okay, I will go. Okay. um, I haven't hired anyone. I mean, everything I do is pretty simple and streamlined. My episodes are literally somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes. So I did that for a reason. I'm a person who has ADD. At least I feel like I do. I can't focus that long. So I'm like, if I can't focus, no one else can. So that's why my episodes are short. But however, I do agree with everything Keisha said, like a media kit and all of that, just vetting the people that you are going to work with. I'm a big use of Fiverr. I love people on Fiverr. They do a lot of things for me.
Yes.
When it comes to shoot anything, I've used people on Fiverr for a couple of different things, and I have not had a bad person on Fiverr help me. And if I find somebody on Fiverr that I like, I stick with them. And so also I do a lot of word of mouth. So I ask people like, hey, who has helped you with, editing or SEO or whatever the case may be, even websites. I ask a lot of people. If I can't figure it out, Google is also my best friend in YouTube. I'm pretty tech savvy, so I can figure out a lot of things myself. GarageBand was a whole learning curve for me because I was like, GarageBand, what are we doing? Definitely had to get on the YouTube for that. But like I said, I can figure things out for myself. I'm pretty tech savvy. I'm pretty creative. I can hop on Canva and come up with something, and people like, oh snap, who did that? Me. So, but when I don't have time, of course, I will definitely outsource to someone that I know, whether it's a friend or somebody on Fiverr. But media kits are where it's at. Shout out to Leah as well, got me together with my media kit. And so yeah, that's all I got.
I didn't take the class, but I definitely was all about that media kit for sure.
hey, she dropped so many gems. Melissa, I don't know, did you take that class with us? Did we?
Yes, I was
Okay.
there. That's why I
Yeah.
was like, where I know you from? That's where
Mhm.
I know you from. Hey girl.
Period.
So, hey, girl, hey. Small world. Well, since we have Clive on, bringing the diversity, this is important because, like we said, Clive has been dropping some real good nuggets today. And having that male perspective is so important because let the men tell it. We women are not wired to listen to men. However, when you have something important to say, it's good that you say it. And what I wanted to ask, and I wanted to start with Clive, is how can men, and of course, as we close, how can men and women work together to create a more inclusive and impactful narrative in podcasting?
It's really
Probably
simple,
thought
but
I should have started with Keisha, huh?
no, sometimes the simple things we make it the hardest. So my big thing is, and I'm still learning, but I've evolved to really get it a little down pack a lot, but more in the past 2-3 years is being open-minded. Try to listen to each other's thought process or aspect, right? But you have to take your understanding away first, meaning try to get their understanding what they're trying to explain to you, and you have to be flipped the other way around too. So try to get their point of view and try to really understand their logic of, okay, this is what you're explaining to me. And then if you're still unsure, ask the questions to get clarity. It has to go on both sides. You can't be stubborn. You can't be hard-headed. And you really have to get what they're saying from their side and then flip it the other way around too.
Yeah.
So once you kind of come to an agreement where, okay, I get what you're saying, here's my point of view. And then being able to understand and kind of come with a idea, okay, this is the way where I think we should go. I get your point of views. I will accept A, B, and C, but D and E, I don't understand that. I don't think that's driving me. And then other way around. So come to like a happy medium. But the point is, you gotta really be open-minded and understand each other. So when both or three or four, but like for four of us, kind of meet or kind of understand each other's wavelengths, and we at the end of the day, we have one goal. It's the same goal. There's multiple ways to get there. You know what I mean? So I feel as long as we're driving together, we're vibing together, the energy's matching, and we're not against each other, I feel it's pretty much uphill after that. Or sorry, downhill. Meaning you getting to that end goal. You know what I mean? It's as I said, the simplest things we make it the hardest. It doesn't have to be that
That's
way.
true.
That's a
You know,
fact.
that's pretty much what it is communication is one main thing. Try to understand each other and just understand we're not here to be against each other. We're here to pretty much work with each other.
Yeah.
It's really that simple.
Yeah. I
I
love
get
that.
it. Anybody else
I
want to
love
weigh
it.
in?
Yeah, I really just want to piggyback off that and just say it really just involves being open minded. You have to go into every conversation being open minded and also understanding that everybody ain't going to get that from you. And you're not going to get that from everybody. And one thing that I have learned on my journey, because I used to be that person we're ready to argue you down. But again, my own self transformation has shifted me into becoming more open minded, is saying, you know what, this ain't gonna work. And I'm okay with that. You know what I'm saying? Oh, okay, it's cool. I appreciate your feedback. Thanks so much. Holla back. I'm out of there. So just being, like Clyde said, being around those that share and want to share in that experience and want to make that impact together, man and woman, I think that that's critical, but also understanding that everybody isn't there mentally, everybody isn't
Yeah.
there spiritually, emotionally, everybody isn't there. That has what's helped me the most, is just being open-minded and receptive, because I love having growth-minded conversations with whoever. And I can have a growth-minded conversation because I do it all the time, and listen to hear, not just listen to respond, listen to hear and
Right. To
engage
understand.
off of what exactly. So just being okay with being open minded and going into it with a completely open mind, is what has helped me out the most. And I think that's what will help us continue to unify, and just understanding that everybody don't want to unify, because there are some people out here who purposely and intentionally want to cause conflict, confusion, and things like that. And you've got to be self-aware enough to know that that's what that person is trying to do, so you can fall back and go find your tribe that does. So
And
Absolutely. I
just to
love it.
add to what everybody just said, I'm big on curiosity. I try to be curious in every conversation I'm in, and take my biases out of it, because I don't want to just be like, oh, that's what you're saying, and it's not really what they're saying. And so just being
Mhm.
able to ask questions. I tell everybody that as a therapist, that's what we're trained to do. We're trained to ask questions. We're trained to be curious, and we're trained to take our biases out of whoever's problems that we're working with. And so I try to take that with me in everyday conversations. And I think it works sometimes it don't. Like you said, everybody don't want to be in alignment or in a growth mindset or growth conversation. A lot of times people are just out here just to argue and to have chaos. That's why everybody got to vote in November. But at the end of the day, we'll throw that out there.
Period.
But yeah, I do think that, men and women, they can come together. I know they say men are from Mars and women are from Venus, whatever planet they're from.
You
But
in
we
my head. I
actually
was thinking that.
but I actually do think that as human beings, if we take away female and male, we just make it as human beings. I do think that we do need to talk. Have conversations, just not talk at each other. We do need to be empathetic, put ourselves in each other's shoes, and really understanding everybody's journey and how we can contribute to the greater good, whatever that is. And so I always say, be curious, ask questions, don't ever assume, because assumptions make a blank out of you. And so let's not do that. And let's keep moving
Mm-hmm.
forward and try to come together as a human being, a human nation, and really go for the greater good and whatever that is for you and whoever else.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
I
you just hit
agree.
one thing. So that think I've been learning that too. Don't assume, because assuming
No.
things can lead to so much. It's like it creates that it puts doubt in your mind. You know what I mean? Just I'm not gonna assume. I used to do that a lot. So it's like, as
Yeah.
long as you don't be doing that, it's hard. Changing overall is hard, and I think this thing called life is a journey. So, and to add to that, I'll give it back to you, Nori. It's like I don't. You know this. I've said this a lot with you and on my podcast. I don't look at stuff as negative anymore. I look at it as a learning lesson. So it's
Mhm.
like if you change your mind concept or mind aspect from that, it to me it opens the doors to a lot more stuff to help you evolve as a better person. So yeah, you might do something that's negative or upset, piss me off or whatever. I was like, you know what? But I'm not gonna look at it as a negative as I realize I need to learn from that. So anything we do in life is me dealing with stuff now. It's like, yeah, I can dwell in a negative aspect and be down and depressed and be whatever. But I was like, you know what? Let me look into that and see what is it that I can readjust or pivot from and say and realize, okay, maybe I should have did it differently. Let's figure it out. Just go to the next route and say, okay, that worked, and I don't have to worry about going to the left anymore. So that's how I look at it right now. Just look at things as a learning lesson versus a negative. That's it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Unless you get on a topic like child support and then the whole conversation goes left.
Depending on who you talk to with
So,
that one.
yeah, I'm gonna have to handpick the partner to talk about that because that could really be a steamy conversation. So yeah, I really love this dialogue. I think you guys, you guys are really rooted in your podcast. I hope everyone would be able to take a listen to it, because although we are all podcasters, our content is different-ish in a way of who we serve and what it's all about, but all equally important to really get out there. I mean, we have folks that's going to help you with your mental health. We're going to help you with your love life. We're going to get your business together. And I'm going to go ahead and make you talk and tell me what's going on. Right? So all of our podcast links are in the comments. So let's close us out. What is in the future for your podcast? What you got coming up and where can people find you?
So the Woman's Hustle, Thrills and Spills of Entrepreneurship is streaming on all audio platforms. It is also on my YouTube channel, which is Upgraded Mindsets Media. And you can actually catch both podcasts on there, the Woman's Hustle, as well as Empowering Real Talk. You can actually follow me on all social media at Coach K Transforms. You can visit my website, which learns more about what I do as a life and business coach, because I work with women to help them with mindset transformation and also entrepreneurial purpose. So you can catch all of that at upgradedmindsets.life. And you can just follow me. Like I said, social media, I definitely post over there. But the best place to find me is the Upgraded Mindsets Media channel. You'll find exclusive content starting in October that will be streamed on my YouTube channel. And you can actually set up time to chat with me. Consultations are always complimentary from me. So I'm just super excited what's to come. The podcasts are definitely full steam ahead still, but I will be making shifts within the in-person side of my business, thriving, trying to elevate on both aspects when it comes to the business side. So just continuing to walk in my purpose pretty much, because this is exactly what it is for me. It's not a job for me. It's easy for me. Could be uncomfortable, scary, frustrating at times, but I always revert back to my purpose and I'm where I'm supposed to be. So, but yes, best place to find me is the Upgraded Mindsets Media channel on YouTube. So definitely subscribe to that.
Wonderful.
You can find Untoxify Your Relationship on all podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple, all of them. I don't even know them because, Buzzsprout did it for me. I'm looking to get on YouTube in 2025. I'm just trying to close out 24, get to episode 50, and then I'm taking a good hiatus until 2025. So episode 50 should be in about the next 2 or 3 episodes, and then I am off for the holidays and doing some well needed rest. As far as the podcast next year, I want to have more guests. I didn't have as many guests this year just because I started off and I was like, I could just do it all with me. Yeah, that was a lot. And so next year, I'm gonna look to have more guests on the show and just do a lot of different things. Just a lot more topics, different topics and things of that nature. Since podcast is a part-time thing, I don't really have much going on. I want to do more speaking engagements on relationships and how to be more healthy from a biblical standpoint. So I will start pitching towards whoever wants me to come. I have spoken before at churches and different conferences, but I'm looking to expand my platform. So that's pretty much for me.
For me, I'm planning to, of course, create some more episodes, obviously. But I'm looking to take in the current content and just do the verbiage part, like how you guys are, go to Spotify and stuff like that. That's my goal into next year. Right now, I'm focusing on my other content, which is picture editing, video editing, stuff like that, and just capturing content. So that's kind of where I'm leading towards on my focus a little bit, but podcast is still one of my loves. So the goal is to maybe get a couple more episodes in this year, but next year, trying to see if I can at least tag team with other content individuals, like how we do here. Just kind of make it more of like a normal trend, like try to keep everything going. So eventually, it'll be a lot more content on the content creator side, meaning for candid conversations. As I said, I already got some social media already created, which is IG, Facebook, and of course TikTok for content. Sorry, not content, but for candid conversations. So I do take we do take a lot of stuff like this, and I create short reels and kind of capture some of those highlights, like what we have, and like kind of, because I said a lot of people may not watch this whole thing. A lot of people have short stands; they prefer to watch the short 30 seconds or 60 seconds of things. So that's where I strive in. I create those short reels, capture those moments, and don't even tell you. So that's what I do. So like today, like all this, I'll go in and take a whole hour and create 15, 30 short reels out of this whole thing right here. And my go-to now is I add a lot of captures and comments across it. And this is the video editing is where I've fallen in love with. So yeah. So stuff like
Did
this.
any of you guys have any questions or comments from your folks?
Nope, I didn't see any, but besides the ones that you've already shared. So I just thank everybody for tuning in, all my followers, listeners that, checked it out today. Share it in your news feed, especially if you are a podcaster. Again, as Clive said, you might not catch all of it, but you can definitely catch some of it. And you never know what part might be that motivation to keep you elevating on your podcasting journey or to start your podcasting journey. As Lucky said, he did have one that he used to do. And because of this episode, he is bringing it back. So we made an impact today, which is what it was about. So super appreciative of that.
And I love a good collab, and Lucky might want to go ahead and collab with Clive.
Oh, I'm definitely going to put that in because Lucky is absolutely, definitely. And everyone here too as well. I'm always down for collaboration. So anytime, please don't hesitate to reach out. I know we have contact information, so I will do the same.
Yeah. And well, I want to say this because I saw Sarah Jakes Roberts. I was listening to her earlier today after my regular church broadcasting, and although we want to create smaller content in clips, with having smaller content, you may miss the context. So make sure you listen to the whole thing. Set some time aside. it's Sunday. Set some time aside while you're fixing dinner, while you're meal prepping, doing your homework, getting your Sunday cleaning done, and listen to the whole thing. So a smaller content might make you miss the context. So listen to the whole thing. So want to thank everyone that was able to tune in. Like Keisha said, share it out with your tribe. I think it was an amazing discussion. I wish we had more time, but girlfriend got a scholarship banquet to go to. So so we're not going to do that today, but definitely look out for us to be doing some things later on. As far as Save Our Sisters Unplugged, I'm going to be planning some things in the city, so look out for a flyer about a belly dancing class. Yes, girl, we getting out there. I meant to get out earlier, but with mom's passing, it kind of set me back a little bit. So I'm trying to come out and do some belly dancing and just have some fun, some girl time or boy time. I mean, hey, it's open, right? Anybody, listen, that'll take some inches off you. So, and not only that, in December we're gonna have a nice little dinner. We're going to get together. We're also working on our mentorship program that's going to start out this year. So we want to mentor some young girls that are, in their tweens, going into high school and beyond, trying to get them prepped for college. So we have a program that we're going to be initiating next year. And of course, the scholarship is going to be opening soon. School just started. So, just want folks to know that if you still want to donate to the scholarship, that is always open to you at www.saveoursisters.net. And you can click on the donate button, hit the scholarship. That'll take you there. You can make your donations there so that you can help contribute to a young girl's future. The qualifications would be the STEAM program, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And those are the categories. Also through in communications and, of course, business acumen as well. So we want to help fund young ladies that are coming out of high school, going into college for the first time. Anything we can do to really promote education, especially among us Black excellence folks. We really want to push that because when you go into the hospital, representation is key. Wherever you go, representation is key. And not only that, we want to be role models. And so that's what we're really trying to do today. So thank you all for joining us. I guess we'll see you next year for the next summit. So if you want to be a part of it, hit me up, let me know. And that's all we have for today. So happy Sunday, happy International Podcast Day tomorrow. I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace and blessings.
All right. Take care.